They both. Is this okay? You can mute it for just a few more minutes.
Amendments tonight that preclude him from being here.
Okay. Ms. Phillips?
Here.
Mr. Taylor?
Here.
Ms. Upchurch?
Here.
All right, thank you, Ms. Namika. To view this meeting's presentation documents, please access Board Docs. The link to Board Docs website can be found via the D38 website, www.lewispalmer.org, on the Board of Education meeting webpage. We'll go ahead and start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Ms. Upchurch, would you lead us, please? Please rise.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Ms. Upchurch. Per Board Policy BEDH, public participation at school board meetings, there is one time for the public to comment, and it is limited to 30 minutes. In an effort to allow all who wish to speak, the amount of time dedicated to each speaker will be dependent upon the number of people who sign up, with the entire public comment period not exceeding 30 minutes. If 10 or fewer people sign up, each person will have 3 minutes to address the board. The sign-up sheet for public comments will be available at 5 p.m. in the Learning Center meeting room. All speakers who will be asked to limit their remarks to the time allotted based on the total number of speakers not to exceed 3 minutes per person. If a group of people have a similar concern, the board requests that a spokesman for the group be selected. The board respects the right of the public to speak on matters concerning the operation of the schools. We believe that public comments that are critical of district staff, however, often cause unnecessary harm to those employees and to the education of our students. As a result, we prefer that members of the public share any criticism of employees in writing with the superintendent, who is responsible for supervising all staff, then involving the board as necessary. If you choose instead to address personnel issue publicly, please understand the board does not endorse the comments of any speaker and reminds all who speak they assume the risk of legal action by district employees if the event affected employees believe that any comment about them violate legal standards. Lastly, keep in mind we may have K through 12 students in attendance. Please keep all comments appropriate to our audience. Okay, I would like to make a motion to adopt or approve them. Let me start over. I'd like to make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
I move to accept the agenda as presented.
Questions, comments, concerns?
Yeah, I have a question on the consent agenda.
Okay.
The administrator contracts that we're approving in the consent, what is that for?
Well, with our administrators, they have a contract year to year in most situations, and we're just essentially approving the contracts. We typically do it in February of each year, but we're able to complete them a little bit early.
And that's all of Karen's staff, is that correct?
Correct. And if you'd like, before we vote on the consent agenda, we could address any questions, or if we could take a recess, and you're more than welcome to review those contracts.
I would like to, before I just consent.
Okay, absolutely. So we'll go ahead and take a recess before the consent agenda, and we could go ahead and take care of that. Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Any other questions, comments, concerns? All right, thank you. Okay, demonstration of learning from Palmer Ridge High School. Tom, I believe that's you, my friend. And Gary, thanks for joining us this evening. This might be your last board meeting, my friend.
Maybe.
I'm sure we'll drag him
Well,
back.
good evening. My name is Gary Gable. I'm the principal of Palmer Ridge High School. And we're going to have a demonstration of student learning, and there's going to be two different parts of it. But they both involve Tom Pulford. And you're probably getting to know Tom because he gets recognized a lot for the success of his football team. But as good as, or great as football coach as he is, he's a better teacher. And he's a teacher in many different ways, in the classroom and outside of the classroom. And he's always willing to step up and help me out or anyone else, and he agreed to help us out tonight. So he has two different things. He teaches health class, and he also teaches a leadership class. So he's going to talk about, I believe, the health class first, a project they have, and then we'll go over the leadership class. But I just want to recognize Tom, and I want to recognize our students, because I know they might have been able to do something else tonight, and they came to support me and Palmer Ridge, so thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gable. All right, so the first thing I want to do is I want to get the voices in the room of the students that are here, and then I'm going to have leadership personnel sit down, and I'm going to have health personnel stay standing. So in a moment, I'm going to hand off the mic, and you're going to introduce yourself, so first and last name, and then you're going to say one thing about you that has nothing to do with health or leadership, just one thing about you. Jake, do we have to talk rumble strips or we're good? Okay. All right, so here you go. This is Caleb.
Hi, I'm Caleb Ryman, and I play basketball at Palmer Ridge.
Got it.
I'm Amelia Calhoun, and I play volleyball.
I'm Donovan Carroll, and I love snowboarding.
I'm Jake Dillon, and I play football.
I'm Mitchell Jeffress, but some of you probably better know me as Tank, and I played on the football team, and I'm currently in wrestling season.
Hello, my name is Izzy Osborne, and I knit outside of school.
She said she knits.
Hello, I'm Jeffrey Dunstan, and I am a Palmer Ridge alumni, and I currently attend UCCS. And the fun fact about me is I sound a lot like my dad. but I think I'm still better looking.
And I want to thank the parents that are in the room here. I want to thank Mr. and Mrs. Ryman. Thank you for coming. Mr. Dunstan, thank you. Mrs. Calhoun, thanks for coming. And Mrs. Pulford and Eli Natalie, thank you very much for coming tonight. Appreciate it. And in a moment, we're going to push play on the first Pulford video. And what you're going to see in the video is Caleb and Amelia, and they're kind of doing like the context of the video that you're going to see second, which is embedded. So in a minute, Vicky's going to push play. But before we do that, I'm just going to start off by saying, in health class, every semester, there's a baby budget project. And what that baby budget project entails is if you were in a situation where a baby was on the way in 8 months and you got kicked out of your house and you dropped out of school and you had to do all these things to make ends meet, okay, what would that reality look like? And then you had to write a paper, got it. What I started doing as an alternative assignment, hey guys, I'll give you extra credit if you film yourself at Walmart or wherever you go, Target, and like what I was really looking for was like the people's reaction of teenagers holding diapers, holding formula. I thought that's what I was going to get. We got something totally different in what you're about to see, and there's one, like Miss Calhoun misspoke in the video. If you have questions, I'm going to divert the questions to Miss Calhoun and Mr. Ryman, not Mr. Pulford. You're welcome to ask me questions later, but these guys are only here for a little bit, so you will field the questions. Okay, before we push play, is there anything else that you guys want to add? Okay, so we're ready for the first video.
Hi, I'm Caleb Ryman.
And I'm Amelia Calhoun.
We were in Coach Pulver's health class last semester, and we were able to do the baby budget project.
This project showed us what having a baby at our age would cost and all the sacrifices we would have to make.
It was a very eye-opening experience.
We got to go to Walmart to film a video of us shopping for our needed items for extra credit. Here's a short clip of our experience. After the video, feel free to ask Coach Pulford any questions. Enjoy.
We're here at Walmart, checking prices for our baby. We'll be here in 8 months.
So these ones will last us for 11 days for $25.
That is not a good price.
So we'll need 3 of these. So $75.
Why don't we just buy
add it to our $500?
the 112 count for $25?
For a 2-month-old.
She said there for a 2-month
I'll
old.
use
That would
duct
work
tape
for the maneuver.
and make it smaller.
What do you need to look at next?
I do not know.
What does your baby need?
Money.
Formula,
Formula.
which
Oh.
we cannot afford, but it needs to eat.
Formula. Let's look for formula.
Well,
Hey, look, this one has more.
Kyle, can you turn it up just a little bit?
Artificial growth hormones.
this has more. It is for brain growth and immunity to diseases. And it has non-GMO and is grown with
Out genetically engineered things, ingredients.
How much is it?
only $20.
Oh, only.
$20 for 35 ounces.
Yes.
Okay, so I asked Vicky to pause it around the 2-minute mark because this is like the aha moment. And I don't know, I know that what I'm about to say is going to make me seem really old, but if you've ever seen Seinfeld and there's like the aha moment, that's happening next. And this, when the video first came to me and I watched it, I probably watched it 3 or 4 times, and I found the moment in time where Miss Calhoun does some mental math, and she's exhibiting high-level executive function to do the mental math and to put in together how much money it's going to cost for a formula for 1 month. And I want you to, if we can turn it up so we can hear what she's saying, and then I want you to watch the look on her face, and then whatever happens in her brain, and then the facial expression, and then what she says in the next few seconds. It's amazing.
How many bottles will that make?
I will make quick math.
Day in 3/4.
I'll make a day in 3/4 bottles. We're gonna buy a lot of those.
A lot. Yeah.
So,
So you need like 6 a week, which is how much?
6 times.
24. 24 times 20 is $480.
$480 for 1 week.
That is why we're in debt.
Which is why there are no more babies coming anytime soon.
So that aha moment is why I think we're here, because they did a great job. This assignment was optional. It was extra credit. It was not something that they... Now, the unfortunate part is that all the kids that come to Palmer Ridge, and maybe even LP, I don't know, Mr. Carr's here, he'll decide, but like, we might make them do this assignment from now on, because that's better than writing the paper. But, you know, they'll have you to thank, and I'll make sure, okay. But like, I'd like to open it up for questions right now, and I'd like to give the mic to them, if board members, if you have any questions, because I think that they did a really good job, and I'm not going to use any language that is pertinent to what Donnie's going to talk about here in a little bit, but I didn't teach them anything regarding video edit or audio or how to submit. They just did it. That wasn't something that I needed to equip them. Now, if a student asked me, I would probably stumble through and try to help them out, but they had that part, and they just went and did the assignment, which I think is really cool. So I'm going to hand the microphone off, and if you guys have any questions, we can open it up now.
So just out of curiosity, with all the baby products that you priced out, what was the total cost per week or per month to take care of a child?
It was around $1,500.
Okay. So how many hours a week or a month would you have to work once your taxes are taken out to pay for that?
You would work 8 hours a week for 4 weeks. So 8 hours a day, my bad. Yes. We went in debt.
Besides what we saw on the video, what was the most impact or something that really took you off that you weren't expecting?
Well, Caleb didn't think the baby needed pants, but also, but everything was like really expensive, even though it's just like basic stuff that our parents usually buy for us, so we don't know the prices.
So I just want to thank Amelia and Caleb for coming up tonight. I know that as a freshman or any age, it's maybe not comfortable and pushes you outside of your comfort zone to come up and present something in front of the school board and in front of an audience. And you guys did a great job. And now we expect even bigger things from you this semester. But like, there's a lot to what just happened. And I just want to thank you very much for the time that you put in. And then like, I don't know, maybe it was like Sunday that I called you Melissa. If I'm not supposed to call parents on Sunday, it happened on Saturday. But like I asked you, Caleb, and you, Amelia, to kind of whittle it down and then kind of give context. You guys did a great job with that, so thank you. So now we're gonna have leadership personnel come on up. And I'm gonna start off by giving context to what's gonna happen next by, after our 2012 season, we started to look at how we could equip the young men in the Palmer Ridge football program so that we never had to experience a vacuum of student leadership again. And I got some information from some really great coaches in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, and then I went to work. And maybe I overdid it a little bit because we were meeting every Friday night in April, and Mrs. Pulford, who is the smartest Pulford in the room, said, you know what, Tom, like when you signed up to be the head football coach and you talked to me about that before you applied, like I get it, Friday nights in the fall, we're not gonna see you, or like we'll be at the games and we'll see you afterwards, but like every Friday night in April, you gotta figure something else out. And thank you, Allie, for saying that, because that helps me get back to where I need to be. And so I sat down with a mentor of mine that I don't spend enough time with, and Ted Bauman said, well, Tom, what are you teaching? And then we started talking, and then we had coffee another time, and then we had lunch, and then it was like a 5-hour, and he's like, well, Tom, this is good. Like, why is this only for football players? And I'm like, well, it's not. And he said, well, do you believe in it? And I said, yeah. And he said, well, why don't you teach it during the school day? And I'm like, well, what are you talking about? He's like, draft a syllabus. I'll see you next week. And like, Ted, like, figure it out. And so I drafted a syllabus, and then I don't remember when it was, but we came to the school board, and we came up with this idea of teaching a leadership class during the school day so that it wasn't happening every Friday night in April. And I'm really glad that Allie told me to not do it every Friday night in April. But then we taught it during the school day, and it was amazing. And the kids behind me are gonna talk a little bit about leadership in the classroom during the school day at Palmer Ridge. And I asked them to just think of one thing and talk about it, and I'm gonna quit talking.
So being the first class, leadership class, Pulford wanted to keep us in the classroom so we didn't drop it, oh, it's a stupid elective. So the very first day we get into his class and he gives us a packet and we're like, great. And we get a packet that on the top of it, the title is Get the Message to Garcia. Now Get the Message to Garcia is a really impactful story because it was about a man named Rowan in 1899 who was tasked a message from the president to get a letter to a guy named Garcia in Cuba, in the jungles of Cuba. And he didn't know anything else other than that his name was Garcia and he was in Cuba. So his job was to get this message to Garcia. It was so vague and into the abyss that he had no idea what he was doing. And he ended up getting his message to Garcia, and it's really impacted me because, in life, you might not have set directions on what you're gonna do, like applying for colleges or getting scholarships for colleges. You just have to get the message to Garcia, and how that is all up to you on your own. You have to grind it out and just get the message to Garcia. And at the same time, that even though it's named Get the Message to Garcia, I think it should be named in a little bit more credit to the person who got him there. The guy named Rowan should be more credited to what he did to get the message to Garcia. And that's just what has impacted me through leadership class, and that's what most I remember out of it.
All right, so what I'm going to be talking about is character. And so I know probably a lot of you, or most of all of us, have our own idea of what character is or what it means to us. But what character means to me, that Coach Pulford has talked to all of our classes and the football team about is your character is what you do when nobody's looking, what you do in the dark. And so Coach Pulford has this analogy, like many of his analogies, is be above the line. And what that means is there's a figurative line, and when you're in public or in a environment where there's people looking and watching and stuff, is to be above the line, you know, no swearing, like dress appropriately, most of the things you should do when you're in public. And when you're with family or friends or anything kind of like that, or you're alone, is when you can be below the line and lift the lid, you know. And that's what's really has stuck with me, because Coach Pulford has taught me a lot from the time I was an incoming freshman to senior year now about character, because I had a little bit of issues there. But Coach Pulford has straightened me out pretty good in that. And so that class really helped us as a group of guys and girls and who we are today and who we're going to be in colleges and jobs as husbands and wives, and that's really what's impacted me.
So Coach had gotten this group with the intention of talking about leadership in the classroom. And it's kind of funny because I'm an outlier in that group. So I'm in the Career Start program. So the first 3 periods of the day, I'm actually down at PPCC in the automotive class. So that's really special. I think it's a great opportunity that I have to take that class. And since I was in leadership, I've been able to apply so many of the ideas that Coach has taught me, that the lessons have taught me in the shop with other students in the shop. And currently, I am at the top of my class. I am extremely mechanically inclined. I grew up that way. That's how I was raised. But you know, the class has taught me the different types of leadership. There's autocratic, there's democratic, laissez-faire leadership, and all of those I can find a place for in a shop. And you know, this last semester, being in a shop, I have been able to apply those. My professor actually made me a leader of a group, helped me kind of bring up some of the kids who were struggling, and I got to credit that to Coach and the class. I mean, sure, I grew up with that leadership in the family, in the household. My father has a degree in leadership, so I do have a background in it. But I mean, the class, it's life experience, and you can't get any better than that. So that's the impact that it's made on me. I think it's a great class.
Hello, everyone. My name is Izzy. And if I'm going to be perfectly honest with you, I tend to lead more towards the follower end of the leadership spectrum. And so this leadership class was an opportunity for me to expand on learning what it means to be a good follower and what it also means to be a leader, and how I can kind of, instead of being a follower all the time, move into positions of leadership. Since the class, I have applied and received a position in student council. I've since resigned because it wasn't a great fit for me, but that was one of the things in the interview that they really asked me about, was how has leadership impacted you? And I think the main thing was that I can be in situations where I can follow, and I can also be in situations where I can take charge. I can kind of do whatever is asked of me, and yeah.
Mr. Gable was really intentional about letting me know how many minutes Jeffrey has. And so there's not a shot clock that's up, Jeffrey, but Mr. Gable is going to tell you to be concise, and I'm going to say use the words directly. I love you. Ready to go.
All right, with that said, I am going to talk about my main point that I learned from leadership class, and it's kind of a tough word, so here I go. Magnanimity. Magnanimity is expressing gratitude to other expressing gratitude to other people, and Coach Pulford describes it as taking the blame and sharing the fame. And as a leader, you're in kind of the head position, and you're kind of the figurehead, and you can take the blame, but also give other people credit and share the fame with everyone. And that's something that I've applied. I really enjoyed this leadership class. I really enjoy learning about different things, but just what Coach Pulford has to represent in that class and what he has to give to us. Coach Pulford is an amazing leader and has led to a lot of my personal development through my years in Palmer Ridge. I've really enjoyed Palmer Ridge and the experience, and I feel like I've really got all of the great things it has to offer, and I really enjoy that. So I think it's kind of ironic that we're talking about leadership with all the great leaders that are in this room, with Superintendent Broft and the whole school board, and we really appreciate you guys and just the leadership that you guys show, but also Mr. Gable, the principal of Palmer Ridge, but also some of the teachers that we have in the audience today. So leadership is everywhere. It's just how you use it and using it for a good tool. So thank you very much for this opportunity.
Okay, so like things that are in the dream phase that like I look forward to continuing to do with each of you. Jeffrey, we're still doing Unity Council. It's awesome this Thursday night after the LPPR wrestling match. I look forward to that. Donnie, at some point, and I don't know when, because like fall seasons seem to last longer at Palmer Ridge, but I'd love to go to an NDSU game with you sometime in the Fargo Dome and like get a picture and wear bison stuff. It'll be awesome. Jake, we keep talking about going fishing and hunting, and we just need to put it on the calendar. Jake lives right across the street from me, and Pistol Creek for life. I don't know, is that a thing? And like, we need to just go do that, right? Like, we live right next to each other. You just need to come, like, kidnap me, and then we'll go hunting and fishing and bring members of the family. Tank, someday you're going to have your own shop. And, like, I don't know if that's, like, Tank's garage or whatever that's going to be, but, like, I've got some vehicles that you could work on, okay? I still drive the same vehicle that Allie drove in high school. It's a 1994 Honda Civic. It's got 300,000 miles on it. And if I know a really good mechanic, I could get it to 400,000. So someday, Tank, that's gonna happen. I'm gonna come into your garage, I'm gonna give you a hug, I'm gonna show you the Civic, and you're gonna be like, dude, it's time. I'll be like, okay. But like, until you say that, I'm not gonna, okay, cool. Izzy, I just wanna tell you that like, of all the students that I've met, football players included, you know, the people who get scholarships, the people who don't, the people who are really witty and funny, Izzy, you might have the highest executive function of anybody I've ever met. And I'm telling you that in front of people because you need to hear that. And like, even though you've been a follower in certain times, when you lead, you do it really, really well. And one thing that you and I have talked about is he babysits for our kids, so I find those people that like have those qualities. And yeah, like we talked about free admission into, yeah, so that's gonna happen this Thursday. So if Palmer Ridge students have a student ID, they get in for free for LP Palmer Ridge Wrestling, and that started with you. Okay, that started with a conversation at the Pulford table, and like even though like student council not your jam, got it, like you still made an impact. Be bold, Izzy. You're gonna change the world. Be bold. Okay? All right. Yeah. So if you want to pull up the last one, so I'm almost done. And I'm just going to tell you that the first day that Izzy was in my health class, I didn't have my phone. At that point in time, I thought it was better to like leave my phone in my office and go across the hall and teach health. And now I bring my phone into classes and I create problems and I observe how people solve problems. And maybe that's not like the right way to do it, but I found the next person that might challenge Izzy for executive function. And we're gonna push play on this in a moment. It's, yep, the Pulford closing, yep, perfect.
It'll start as soon as I open it.
Okay, so I'll finish this. So this is the first day of health class. There's no seating chart. Everybody has a last name. I count how many people are in there. I say I want this many people per row and alphabetical by last name, ready, go. And it's chaos. And then there's a leader, and a leader emerges. And
everyone, last name which starts with the letter A, come over to this desk. I asked for people looking at A.
We like there's more to the video, but we don't need to see it. Leadership emerged. So like in the context of like, where am I supposed to sit? It's the first day. This probably works better in the second semester because in the first day, school kids are like kind of wigged out, and you probably set them up for success by having a sticky note on the desk that says this is where you're supposed to be. But in the second semester, that's my jam. All right, we need a seating chart. This, ready, go. And then like, I just want to see who's going to solve the problem. And I'm going to start doing more of that because I think it equips our kids to be 21st century problem solvers instead of waiting for somebody else to solve a problem for them. So thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it. Mr. Gable, do you want to close it out?
Yeah, I just want to thank Tom for bringing the students and what you do every day and the energy you bring. And I want to thank the students. You guys did an amazing job. So thank you.
We'll take a couple-minute recess. Couple minutes.
Thank you. On? Good. All right, thank you. We are here to do some recognitions, and I talked about this a little bit in last month's board meeting, but tonight is the official night when we'll be recognizing our schools that have gotten state awards as well as our own internal Inez Lewis Award. So we have some banners, but we haven't gotten the banners yet from the state. So those of you that got a state John Irwin Award, those will be forthcoming. What I said in last month's meeting was all of our schools are very deserving of an award. We have a phenomenal focus on students, and regardless of whether a formal award is given, all of our schools perform at a very, very high level. Just so happens that there's certain awards that there's sort of a cut point at which you get an award, and these are the folks that earned that. So the Colorado Department of Education has honored 2 schools, Lewis Palmer High School and Prairie Winds Elementary School, with the John Irwin Award. The John Irwin is given to schools that demonstrate exceptional academic achievement over time. These schools received an exceeds expectations rating on academic achievement in the school performance framework for math, language arts, and science. So in order to get the John Irwin, you need to hit all the marks. So we've had almost all of our schools, including Monument Academy in the past, earn a John Irwin. Actually, I think all of them. And some years you get it, some years you don't, and it's just about making that cut. So let's start with Lewis Palmer High School. Tony Carr, are you here? There you are. So Lewis Palmer High School, I don't know that we have anything in the pile for them because you'll be getting something from the state as soon as we have it.
That's because it's supposed to be Lewis Palmer Elementary School for the John Irwin.
Oh, that's what I thought. But it said Lewis Palmer High School here, so I got a little confused.
That's because the CDE got it incorrect.
Oh.
It's rectified on the website.
Oh, good. Well, Tony, you run a phenomenal school anyway. Let's give Tony a round of applause. Tony was more than willing to come up here and get an award. I wouldn't have been able to get you anything anyway because we haven't gotten them from CDE. So, Lewis Palmer Elementary. All right, so we want to recognize Lewis Palmer Elementary, which will give you the virtual pretend that we just gave you the banner. You will get it as soon as CDE delivers it to us, but want to recognize you and your staff for the amazing work that you have done to earn this award, because certainly exceeds expectations in all those areas. It's hard to get, and you've done some phenomenal work. Is there anything you'd like to say?
Tony, I wish you were up here with us, but in any case, we're pretty excited at Lewis Palmer Elementary. This has been actually a goal of ours for several years, and so there's some staff members that are here who would like to celebrate as well. And we've got a great cross-section of classroom teachers, instructional coaches, paraprofessionals, interventionists, specialist teachers here, and if they could come up for a quick photo op, that would be terrific.
All right, thank you. Congratulations. All right, next up, we have Prairie Winds Elementary, who have also earned the John Irwin School of Excellence Award. So again, we appreciate your hard work. Prairie Winds has actually been up here on many occasions. So how many years have you had that John Irwin Award? Didn't mean to put you on the spot.
Well, let me think. We've had it every year that they've given it since 2008.
All right, so that's pretty amazing accomplishment, so congratulations. So again, really appreciate the work of your staff because this reflects not only the achievement of our students, but the work of the staff and exceeds expectations in all of those areas is difficult to get. And so we're pleased to be able to honor you and provide you with a banner at some time in the future to hang on your school, outside your school. Do you want to say anything?
I'd like to invite the Lewis Palmer Elementary teachers up to take a picture with me. or Tony. No, thank you. Thank you for the recognition. Everything that Jenny said, of course, I also agree with. It's a lot of work on a lot of people's part, and we don't take it for granted. We're excited to have received it again.
Thank you. Congratulations. So now we have an internal district award that we have developed to recognize those schools that make significant growth. And we actually do have banners and certificates since we're in control of those versus CDE. And so we would like to take a moment to recognize some of the folks in the room that have made that significant leap in terms of growth, made more than 10 percentage points of growth, which isn't easy to do in at least one academic area that's tested by the state. And so I'm going to go ahead and bring up Lewis Palmer High School as an opportunity for Tony to come back up here. Lewis Palmer High School made a 10-point change in English language arts from 2017 to 2018. Congratulations. What I wanted to say before I turn it over to Tony is one of the reasons we wanted to recognize this is because sometimes we fail to recognize the hard work that goes into getting yourself to and exceeds expectations in certain areas. And actually, Lewis Palmer High School has earned the John Irwin Award in the past. But that comes, first of all, through growth in student achievement. And so that's why we wanted to make sure that we recognize that a lot can happen before you get a John Irwin that demonstrates that you are doing some excellent work with students.
Yeah, the John Irwin is an exceptionally high bar to reach, and we congratulate the two elementary schools, LPE and Prairie Winds, for receiving that. And we are very proud of the 10-point gain in growth amongst our English students. Also very challenging and the result of some very dedicated and talented staff members at our buildings. So thank you for this honor, because growth of our students is paramount to our success.
Congratulations. Well, next up, we'll bring Prairie Winds. Eileen, back up again. Do you want to bring Lewis Palmer Elementary with you this time? So Prairie Winds made a 14-point gain in growth in mathematics, which is also a significant change. And we recognize that in addition to earning the John Irwin, they're also demonstrating wonderful growth with their students. So I don't know if you have anything else you want to add.
I'll just say really quick. Growth for us is everything. So we have a lot of high-achieving students that walk in our door, and we recognize that. And we don't have some of the challenges that some of our bigger schools have. So growth is really the measure that tells us how we're doing, because that's taking the students from where they are when we get them to better places.
Thank you. Congratulations. Photo op. All right. Next up, Ray Kilmer Elementary. Drew? I'm sure some of the Lewis Palmer Elementary teachers, staff would be happy to come up here if you need them. All right, so Ray Kilmer, also a past John Irwin Award recipient. Like I said, some years you get right through that mark, and some years you get really close. But the way you do that is through a change in your overall growth. So wanted to recognize you for the 11-point gain that you had in English language arts, which is significant, and I know that you have some words to say about your staff.
I feel like it's a reflection of two areas. One is both whole group instruction, small group instruction with certified teachers, classified teachers, and also an emphasis on our professional development. So it's nice to see that growth. Karen mentioned that sometimes you hit the mark with John Owen, sometimes you don't. Last year we were fortunate enough to be a recipient. This year we missed the John Owen by 1 percentage point. So sometimes you get it, sometimes you don't.
Congratulations. And then Lewis Palmer Elementary, if you could come up once more. You can bring the whole crew with you this time again. So we also recognize a change in growth that doesn't have as much to do with the percentage point. Lori, can you explain what we're recognizing Lewis Palmer Elementary for in terms of their growth? Okay, so I know, I thought maybe that we had the wrong number on here because as I'm looking at it, this is the old one. Okay, so congratulations again for that growth, and anything else you want to add?
So I know these guys are a little cranky with me that I dragged them up here again, and they were being really good sports. But truly, at Lewis Palmer Elementary, really what we emphasize time and time again is our emphasis on community and how we take care of kids, how we take care of one another. We teach with fidelity to the Colorado academic standards. We worked hard on improving instruction, and this is a result of how our community takes care of one another. So that's why I've asked these folks to be up here to reflect our community. So thank you for humoring me.
Congratulations. Okay, next, I think it's my time to offer some recognition as well. So, as you may or may not know, January is School Board Recognition Month. And so that's one of the reasons why you've got the lovely display of information, or excuse me, of candy, I should say, and Big Red, from some schools. I know that some other schools have things planned in an effort to recognize the good work that you do, but I wanted to say a few words first. So being on a school board is not an easy thing, as you have all learned. You take a lot of criticism, and you give a lot of your time. But you also do a lot of good, and I don't want you to lose sight of the fact that you're leaving a legacy through the work that you're doing, because it is important work, and without school boards, we wouldn't be able to make sure that we are doing the right things for kids on a daily basis. One of the things I appreciate about each of you is that you do remain focused on students. And that's a unique quality, because so many things can distract us in this work that we do, but ultimately we're here for students, and we're here for our students' overall success in life after they leave our control. Not that we have control over them, but after they leave our roofs, I guess I should say, the roofs of our schools. So I just wanted to take a moment to tell you how much I appreciate you and each of you and what you bring in terms of leadership to our district. I also every year try to give the school board members a quote at this time. So the quote that struck me as important to capture you this year is from Douglas MacArthur. This is what he has to say. A true leader has the confidence to stand alone, the courage to make tough decisions, and the compassion to listen to the needs of others. He does not set out to be a leader, but becomes one by the quality of his actions and the integrity of his intent. So thank you for staying true to that focus on students and your integrity and your intent, even when the waters get a little rough. I picked a picture to put this on that I thought was good depiction. Sometimes you feel like you're standing out there at the end of the dock, all by yourself, and the waters might get rough at any point in time, but you're still standing there, and that's what's important. So thank you so much for your service, and we really appreciate you, so thank you.
Thank you, Karen.
So we also have some cards from Palmer Ridge that I'm going to pass along. And I have a card here as well that I'm going to pass along to you, as well as the quote, if you want to take that. And then Lewis Palmer High School always does this wonderful job of putting together this lovely goodie bag of spiritware for you. So I'm going to pass that as well. I think you have a bag and you've got a t-shirt and a card. So some schools are choosing to recognize you in the month of February, so know that more is coming. And just know that you're loved and appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Broft, and for Lewis Palmer for the kind gift. I still wear my Lewis Palmer shirts around my house. Sometimes I get grief from my son that will be attending Palmer Ridge next year, but both wonderful schools. Next agenda item is public comments. Ms. Namika, if I could. No problem. Okay, there are 3 individuals listed, so each party will have 3 minutes. Is it Red Stevens? Okay. Mr. Stevens, just bear with me for a moment. Let me grab the...
Well, this is a repeat of last year, because I wonder why we do not have at least 2 elementary schools south of Highway 105. The area is building and growth. That's where you're supposed to build elementary schools. And I don't know if it's a town of monument, but I do know that the developers hedge a great deal on giving us land. But we need to be in contact with the town of Monument and El Paso County to get lands for these schools, because all of our schools are on or north of Highway 105, and where's the major growth? That's my comment.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jackie Burhans.
I feel like saying, hi, it's me again, Jackie Burhans, been here before. I just wanted to say that I am one of the volunteers with Strong D38 Community. And as many of you know, we're having a meeting on Thursday at the barn from 6 to 7:30, kind of titled Continuing the Conversation. So what we're hoping to do is to get community members to come and talk to us about what are the things they want to know about the challenges the district faces, including the need for additional elementary schools, but pretty broad ranging. And then what we hope to do as a group is have multiple meetings going forward, focusing on a topic and exploring that more deeply. I know a couple of board members expressed some interest in coming this Thursday. We hope to see you there. And we hope to see you, a couple of you at least, each time that we have one of these, and will be functioning really kind of as a liaison and doing research and gathering information that the community wants to know about some of the really big challenges we have. So thank you all for your support. Hope to see admin, teachers, community members all show up Thursday, 6 o'clock at the barn, and keep an eye out for future meetings. Thanks.
Holly Longerbach.
I have to write things down. I can't just. I just wanted to say that it's great to see that Don Griffin is here today from Monument Academy to give us their annual report. I know that the community is really looking forward to soon learning about the updated and detailed information on Monument Academy's middle and high school plan, including how the approval conditions will be met.
Okay, that concludes our public comment portion of our meeting. We'll now have board member comments. Mr. Taylor, would you like to start off?
I was going to say no comment, but Karen set me back quite a bit here. So I just wanted to express my gratitude to be able to serve in this role. And I look forward to our growth next year. I've appreciated seeing the growth of kids in our school districts, which is really a tribute to staff and teachers and the kids and the parents. But I look forward to the growth of our board as we move forward and through this year. And so thank you for the chance to serve with you all, and I look forward to this year a lot. Thanks.
Ms. Phillips?
Yeah, I'll start with some gratitude as well. I still feel very new to the board. I still feel like my learning curve is very steep, and I'm still trying to listen as much as I can. To that end, I'm really grateful to my fellow board members for multiple conversations, and just the conversations we have even in the board meetings and the working sessions that are helpful to me, and I think provide ideas I hadn't thought of before. I also want to thank, I've had a number of one-on-one conversations with different admin personnel, who I won't name, but who have been really helpful in terms of me learning some of the, not just the history of the district, although we've been here since 2006, but just having been a parent in the district, having the perspective of a board member is different and unique, and I want to take that on in a way that best serves our community. So I'm still learning a lot, and I'm really grateful to those people who've met with me. And to continue that, I'm really grateful that each of us as board members have opportunities this month to attend the staff meetings at every single one of our schools. I think we're covering every school. And so to that end, I have been to 2 already, at Prairie Winds and at Bear Creek Elementary. And I want to thank the teachers, because we are wanting to hear from them and to be liaisons for them. And they are, in a very authentic and heartfelt way, sharing with us. And I'm really, really grateful for that. I know we're going to be at some upcoming staff meetings as well, and I hope as a board, and I, at least as one board member, would like to continue this, not just this month, but somehow continually throughout the year, so that we have that personal connection. And when my husband and I first chose Monument as a community to live in 2005, one of the aspects we really, really loved about it was the community. You could feel it in the schools, you could feel it in King Soopers or Safeway, you could feel it just about everywhere. I think I've seen a different side of our community since I've been on the board. And I want to keep my focus on the really great qualities that we have here and capitalize on those. At the last working session, I shared that I felt a little bit heartsick, not just that the bond hadn't passed, but that in December we had a board meeting and we were all feeling quite positive, forward-thinking. The thought exchange had given us some good information. We had some forward momentum. And to come into that working session last week and to find out that I want to hear the ideas, but it felt like a 180 turn. And so I think we have more to think about. I think we have more ideas to discuss. And I am looking forward to, in February, hopefully leading with some integrity and conviction as a board to really plot our future forward. I know we have a lot going on in terms of the admin turnover, board seats, bond, MLO. There may be other things I'm missing, but I really feel that we can take on multiple things at a time. So I'm looking forward to that. And I was unable to attend the coffee, but I am out and about, and I think we've said this at the staff meetings as well. We are available by email. We're available by phone. Please contact us if we're not at, if our schedules don't allow us to be at some of the public gatherings. I think I speak as one board member, but I hear my fellow board members very open to interacting and connecting with people. So I would encourage people to connect with us. Also, my last comment, I'm looking forward to this in a positive way to the superintendent search, although very much we will miss you, Karen. That's not to minimize that at all. But I think we feel confident in CASB and in the way forward. And there are opportunities for people to get involved through focus groups and interview committees, and the more we can get the word out to include our community, I think the more cohesive we can all be.
Thank you, Ms. Phillips. Ms. Upchurch?
Thank you. I too wanted to express my appreciation for our community. We had our board coffee last Thursday, and there was a lot of great discussion, open dialogue, and a lot of good exchange of thoughts and common ground. And I really thought it was a positive experience. We'll be looking at doing another one probably around at 3:30 to 5:30 time frame. We want to make sure that we're allowing everybody's voice to be heard. And I think that everybody's voice can be heard at the table, and that's what these coffees are for. And so I really appreciate all that came with open hearts, open minds, and eager to share ideas and exchange. I will be planning to attend the meeting at the barn on Thursday, so I'll be there as well. And I have attended the staff meeting at Prairie Winds with Teresa, and we attended one at Lewis Palmer Elementary School today. I'll be at Kilmer tomorrow. And I really appreciate the feedback we've been getting from our staff and that comfort level to give open feedback and open dialogue. And I'm really encouraged because I'm seeing a lot of common ground and a lot of discussion on what can we do to make sure that we are honoring our students and honoring our staff and our parents and our stakeholders here in our school district. So I really have appreciated that. I think that as we continue that dialogue forward, and I think that we should do more of this. It's been nice to see. It was good to see the principals here with their voice at the December board meeting. Which, speaking of, I do want to congratulate all of our schools on your awards. These awards are a direct result of our caring and engaged staff and our involved parents and volunteers and our fantastic and motivated students. And I have a personal place in my heart because LPS parents and staff have had this goal for the John Irwin for quite a while, and it's such a joy to see that goal become an accomplishment and see the smile on everybody's faces out there. So congratulations again. Prior to the holiday break, I visited many of our buildings and talked to some of our principals and got some good feedback, and I attended the Homeschool Enrichment Academy's talent show program, and to see those kids play those instruments over there in that gym, they've got some talent. They do a pretty good job. It was really heartwarming. And it reminded me of what you just said, that our community takes care of one another. I just witnessed, today it was icy out, obviously, a lot of snow, and MA's parking lot and its roads were getting a little slick. And so those parents, the PTO came together, went out, bought ice melt, and took care of the streets and the sidewalks. And that's what community does, to take care of each other. And I thought that was pretty cool. Mr. Pulford's presentation reminded me also of how we have a lot of really good classes and development going into our schools. And I am excited and hope that we get a chance to talk about that more and point that out. Our district is offering a lot of great opportunities, from internships and online opportunities, leadership classes. My daughter, her sophomore, just finished her finance class. So I hope that we have an opportunity to talk more about that and point that out, because we're doing some really good things for our kids. And Karen, thank you for your kind words. Thank you so much for the encouragement. And thank you for your leadership.
Thank you, Ms. Upchurch. I also want to thank Ms. Broft. She's a wonderful person, a great leader, and it was very kind for her to take time out of her busy schedule to prepare these cards and this little picture. So thank you very much. I also had the privilege of attending the school board coffee. It was great to meet a couple of our constituents and to hear their thoughts and concerns. We also had teachers, and I always enjoy sitting down and hearing from our teachers to better understand what issues they're dealing with. This morning I had the privilege of attending 2 staff meetings, one at LP High School and then the second one at Bear Creek. It was nice to really show up without an agenda and to hear the concerns and suggestions of our wonderful teachers. We're very fortunate to have such a good community and a great school district. I read that District 38 in one study was rated the 3rd district in the state. That's very impressive, and I think significant, if not all the credit, should go to our teachers and the Lewis Palmer team for the many hours that you put forth in dedicating your time to our kids. Also wanted to thank you all for being in attendance tonight. I see many of our friends from Monument Academy. We're looking forward to hearing from you in a few minutes. I enjoyed the presentation from Palmer Ridge. My guess is there's not a whole lot of high schools that offer leadership classes, and I think that's indicative of the type of teachers we have and the type of students that attend our school district. So Ms. Broft, that is all I have, so we'll turn the time over to you.
Okay, well, winter sports are in full swing, and we're starting to see a lot happening on that front. I think we might have some other new opportunities for going to state. That's in the winter months, which is great as well. We've already done some great work in the fall months, and so looking forward to that. Just wanted to remind everyone in the middle school band performance at the CMEA conference at the Broadmoor on January 24th at 10 a.m. if you need tickets. Vicki, I think, is kind of coordinating that with Mr. Moe and Mike Mazengo. I also want to tell you about the curriculum review we have going on right now. Started January 14th. It will go through the 28th. It includes K-5 math, 7th social studies, 7th and 8th health, 9th grade earth science, 10th and 11th chemistry, and 11th grade American history. It's up in the, we have it open every day for people to come and look and make their comments, and it's up in the community room on the 2nd floor. So 8:30 to 4 is the actual time. Once we go through that process, of course, we'll come to the board with that recommendation for the curriculum. We also have WIDA access for ELs, that testing going on. So the testing window began yesterday, and it closes on February 15th. And this is a required test by the state of Colorado for English language learners. It's pretty intensive in terms of time and resources, but it gives us some really good data. We also are already beginning to plan our next thought exchange. We've got some good feedback from the last one and some things to begin the process of educating around and providing information as requested through that thought exchange or as provided as feedback that maybe it was a gap. So Julie has been working very hard to try to develop some of those materials and figure out different ways for us to get that information out to people. And we'll have another follow-up in early February with one question that digs a little bit deeper on one of the themes that we saw through that last thought exchange. Other than that, I'm going to turn it over to Cheryl.
Just one piece of information. I reported last month that we were going to write for security vestibules at 2 of our elementary schools for the grant offered by the state Colorado Department of Education and then administered through the Colorado Department of Homeland Security. Because of a really tight timeline from the time that they gave the information out until the grant was due, our vendor that was going to provide us the bids, 2 vendors actually, for those security vestibules was unable to get that data back to us. However, thanks to Dennis Coates and Chris Mack and our grant writers, Kathy Wilcox and Heather Buckman, in literally 4 days, we went to Plan B. We went ahead and wrote for phase 3 of our camera initiative, where we started with the high schools and we put the cameras in. Now we're at the middle school, and we went ahead and wrote for the elementary camera system. We don't know exactly when we'll find out whether or not we got that grant, but I really do appreciate the quick thinking and the quick turnaround that we did to go ahead and be able to submit a grant to see if we could get those funds. So I wanted to make you all aware of that.
Thank you, Cheryl. Next item on the agenda, Monument Academy Annual Report, Dr. Griffin. And I don't know if you want to bring your board up or if you could introduce them.
Actually, I only have one board member. I'm Dwayne Cook. Dwayne's a new board member.
Thank you for being here this evening, Mr. Cook.
He kept sending me pictures of him skiing this last weekend, so I don't know. And then he claimed it was for his brother-in-law, so I'm not really sure to know what's going on with Mr. Cook. Thank you for the opportunity. As required by our contract, I submit an annual report for Monument Academy in August, and then we do an update in January, and then you graciously invite me to come and give you that update. So I know you have the full report in your board packet, and just want to hit a couple of some of the updates that have occurred since that original submission. Obviously, through count day, our FTEs are at 905. That's down just a couple from what we had last year. We're basically full. Our middle school has 353 FTEs, which is at capacity according to board policy. We do have a couple of seats at our 5th grade. It's the 5th class of our 5th grade, but virtually all the other classrooms are full. Our overall retention rate of students from year to year is 87%, and that's significant because as a charter school, you know that all of our students have to choice in. So to retain 87, almost 90% of the students is good. We did see an increase in our gifted students up to 85 from 55 last year. Our ELL students also increased from 26 last year to 51 this time. And also on the financial front, the reserves for December 31st, 2018 was $2.6 million, and that's up almost $250,000 over that same date last year. The big update I want to do is just talk a little bit about the Monument Academy High School. And probably the best way to describe this is that we're on a parallel pathway. I describe it to my board is if you've ever been to a rail yard and you've seen where they're trying to sort out all the boxcars, and there seems to be about 20 tracks, and then they all sort of merge together as they put the trains. That's sort of what's going on with our process. We have a bunch of different parallel tracks with a whole bunch of things going on all at the same time to reach the ultimate goal to be open in August of 2020. We'll start with the land sale. of the parcel there at 83 and 105. We're in the process of receiving the donation from the developers there of about 23 acres. And again, that's sort of that whole partnership, because that land belonged to you and you were able to sell it, and then it became part of that land became a donation to Monument Academy. Financing. Currently, we are considering two different types of financing. We have what I'll call the traditional bond financing. We have already been made an offer by one of the premier underwriters who's done work with us before out of Denver to underwrite the bonds if we choose to go that way. We also have had a more conventional approach with a loan. One of the national banks, the number 3 person out of a national bank, has visited Monument Academy. That was an interesting discussion, because when the bond council and the bankers start talking about where they're going to place the loan on the books of the bank, it tells you you're probably not worried about qualifying. They're worried about where they're going to put it and how they're going to address that. Both of those were very, very promising, and so we'll be making that decision, and hopefully we'll be closing that financing here in the spring. Also, an appraisal is in the process of being completed, which we'll need for financing as well. So that's one of the parallel tracks. The other tracks that we have going on is the infrastructure. Obviously, that was undeveloped land, and so the infrastructure is addressing several things. We're working with the utilities to get there. I will tell you, I can't tell you everything, because apparently black helicopters show up, but apparently there is a very sensitive DOD optic fiber somewhere on that property, and they won't tell us where it is, but they say if we get close to it, they'll come and tell us. We are working with the utilities for both water and the other things. We're also already had multiple meetings with the El Paso County Planning Commission and with the Colorado Department of Transportation. They have already started making some concessions of what they want to do to control traffic at that particular location, all of which we take as very good signs. All the preliminary engineering, soil testing, and everything that you need to get started has already been completed, and we're running into no problems there. The partnership with the Y is moving along. The Tri-Lakes YMCA has decided that they will take somewhere between 12,000 to 17,000 square feet within our building. They'll be a tenant, and they're going to duplicate some of the Life Center stuff that they have in their current place, along with some other stuff. Probably the thing that's most promising is the program development. We've met with all of their program directors, and they will be providing to Monument Academy a number of programs that the Y will be actually teaching to our kids. Some of them will be in the PE area, and some of them will be the other types of things, but that partnership is very unique. We did take a trip to Lincoln, Nebraska, where the Y has 2 facilities with middle schools there. The middle schools have 1,000 students, and the Ys have very large facilities. One of the facilities is 50,000 square feet. That's what the Y takes up in this middle school. They have their own indoor pool, and what we saw there was a huge opportunity for our students and for our staff and for the families in that area. So we're going to continue working with that partnership, and we think that will speak highly of what we'll be able to put there. Also, design and construction. Last summer, we were able to select CRP architects and JHL contractors to help design and build. CRP is the same architects that you guys have chosen and have used in the past, and we're working to create, again, what we think is a very efficient and budget-conscious facility. JHL contractors have done about 4 dozen different charter schools within the state of Colorado. They have vast expertise. Probably the one thing that we liked about their presentation when we selected them, they sent their A-team. Every single one of the people that are on the team are either a partner, principal, or director from that particular company. And so they are absolutely putting their best team on this, and we think that that will prove to be a good thing. All the conceptual reviews that are going on with our staff and with our leadership, and that's ongoing. Again, all of this is sort of happening at the same time. If we have our way, as soon as the ground thaws in the spring, we're going to have a groundbreaking, and we have a 14-month construction plan already developed, and so we should be able to meet the August 2020 opening date. And so that was sort of the update of what was there. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
I have one question. That's the ingress egress. You said you've been working with El Paso County or Department of Transportation or whomever. Do you have good ingress egress already approved, or is it still? The
preliminary talks have been somewhat surprising because there's a thing they call warrants, which dictates how far back intersections have to be and so on. And they have been very gracious to say, well, we might consider a traffic circle or this to bypass that warrant to give us really good access and make it very safe. And we think from what they're telling us, it'll work very well for that particular piece of property. Great. Yeah.
Don, thanks for coming. It's helpful. And being the newest one on the board, I sometimes haven't had all the background that my other fellow board members have had. But I know that a year ago, or about a year ago, there was a plan for the high school for 9 through 12. And since that, there have been discussions about a campus that's 6 through 12, is that correct?
That's correct. So
I'm assuming that the plan has changed, but I'm not sure that, have we seen an updated?
The history of that, we applied for a high school when the board approved the high school, which were grades 9 to 12 to be added onto our charter, and we renegotiated the charter contract. We included that we would move the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade to the new location. And that was all part of that, because we'll be operating under one oversight board for both locations.
And so the actual plan for the building remains the same?
Well, the plan for the building will encompass grades 6 through 12. We'll move our middle school to the new location, then we'll expand K through 5 at our current location. It'll give them additional space.
And then in terms of capacity or seats, I guess, are you building something that allows for more students, given that it's 6 through 12 rather than 9 through 12?
We believe that we are. We're up to phase 3 of how we can do that, and that's part of the plan, is to have a building that will be easily expandable if we have that opportunity to do so. But currently, right now, the plan is to move the middle school, which is 6th, 7th, and 8th, and then open 9 through 12 over the next 3 years from the opening date.
And then just to follow on, I was thinking about the timeline of when we were talking about potential elementary school and our short construction timeline. Do you feel confident that you can build this building in 14 months? It just strikes as a short timeline. So and I'm thinking in terms of our growth and capacity and where all the students in our community are going to go to school, but 14 months to build that, do you feel confident?
Well, keep in mind, the 14 months is just the construction phase. So we chose JHL contractors back last summer. So they have been working with the architect. It's all going on at the same time. So as the architects flesh out what the design, they're able to go in and to do all the costing, the materials, and that type of thing. So it's not a linear process where you have architects who design something, and then you try to figure out what it's going to cost to build that, and then you figure out what's the logistics of bringing it in. They sort of do it all at the same time. And so every time we have a meeting, there's somebody there. One of their directors is there from the contractor who's saying, you know, we really shouldn't do that. We need to do this. This will keep us on that 14-month timeline. And JHL has proven time and time again that they can do that time schedule.
Yeah.
Based on the size of the building. Yeah.
Okay, and so your analogy of the parallel tracks, you see them all coming together in June, and then
it'll start in the spring. Again, the analogy, if you line up boxcars, you know, you got some that are in front of the others. So some of the design, financing, and some of that will be right in front, and then the actual construction comes toward right behind those, but we're planning and putting them all in the yard at the same time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any additional questions for Dawn?
Teresa asked one of them, so you're still on track for the same, so it'll be the 353 or sixth graders going in and then 500 high school seats?
Yes.
And you're doing a design build scenario?
It's a modified design build, but that's basically what it is, yeah.
Just out of curiosity, what is the finance cost?
I'm sorry?
What is the cost of what were you guys quoted? Does that make sense?
You mean the
for
cost
for the project?
For the building?
Yeah.
Yeah, the building, depending on some of the subtleties, is somewhere between $20 and $30 million. And that includes the infrastructure and some of the other things, yeah.
Does that include the Y?
Do what?
Does that include?
The Y is a tenant, so
it is
that's
part of the
building, yeah.
Any additional questions for Dawn? Thank you for being here this evening.
Thank you, Dawn.
Thank you.
Matt, did you want to announce the dates for February meetings? Because we're not doing it on the third Monday, so.
Sure. Kathy, or Ms. Namika, would you take us through our calendar for February?
We have a work session.
Can you, sure,
We
the
can
microphone,
do that,
please?
sorry.
Great suggestion, Mr. Taylor. Thank you.
The February work session will be on Monday, February 4th. The meeting will be the following week, February 11th. The third Monday is a holiday, so we moved it up a week.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Foster, can you give us an update on the superintendent search process?
So as you know, you approved CASB already as the provider, and you reviewed and approved the timeline this last week. CASB has emailed you all with the flyer. I believe you all got the email this week. The job itself is posted. Actually, a couple calls have been made to CASB and others about the job already. The 22nd, the flyers went out for the information groups, for the groups already in that. They were sent out by Peach Jar, and it's on Facebook, and it'll be rebroadcast again this Friday and Saturday, if I'm correct. And so all of those will go, and Mr. Zila will be down next Tuesday. After the holiday on Monday, he'll be down next Tuesday to the focus groups with teachers and staff and community board members and administrators all next Tuesday. We'll get those done. The position will close as it was intended, and then the search will begin, and your interviews are set for the 14th and 15th, the 14th with teams of interviewers and the 15th with the board interview, and with final approval slated for the 18th of March.
Any questions for Mr. Foster?
Yeah, I'm sorry, you were going fast.
Yep.
So the open period for
The open period,
application
yes,
started yesterday.
started yesterday and will go till March 3rd. No, excuse me, February 3rd. Did I get that right? 30 days.
February 14th.
14th, yeah.
Valentine's Day. Awesome.
Yeah.
So then, between now and then, did you mention activities that are going on?
Yes. So next Tuesday, as you guys had the feedback session with Mr. Zila at the work session last week, there will be community feedback on next Tuesday.
Are those groups defined already, or?
No, those are all invites, so those are not defined. You can come, and the invites went out in Peach Jar, and then they will be pushed out on Facebook and all of that. Yep. So those will all be pushed out, and it's the same with the staff.
So between now and the end of the application process, we're developing focus groups or whatever you're calling them.
Those
that
focus
will-
groups will provide input for you for the look-fors for the candidate and for the interview groups.
For
the actual interview groups
process.
have yet to be developed. They will be developed over the next 3 weeks. And so those will go into effect. After the interview groups, I will send out applications to teachers and an application process to teachers to be on the teacher interview portion of that. The interview groups will be 3 interview groups. We can accomplish it with 3 interview groups led by myself, as was agreed here, myself, Dr. Benton, and Mr. Frampton. And then we will have approximately 8 to 9 people per interview group made up of other administrators, building administrators, parents and teachers, and community members.
And those begin, so the closing time on the application process is the 14th. When did the interviews start? Did you
The
say
interviews will be
18th?
the 14th and the 15th of March.
Oh,
So,
of March.
Right.
Okay.
So the 18th is the day you will make the decision. The 15th is the day you will interview. And then the 18th, you will, in public, make your choices, talk about, discuss, and make your choices in public. You have to have that discussion in public. The finalists will be named 14 days prior to your interviews, which is right towards the end of February there. I believe I want to say it was the 25th, 26th. I'm not looking at the calendar right now, so that's dangerous. But those, once you identify the finalists, you go into executive session. Mr. Zillo ran through all that schedule of things. You will do that. Yep.
So the community involvement is in the next 4 weeks, essentially.
Yes.
Okay.
Community involvement through that is through, yes.
And Bob, just to clarify, those focus groups that Randy and
Randy will facilitate those.
They will be summarized or bulleted. That information will be provided to us.
Yes, that information will be provided to you, as well as information provided to the public in general. The focus group that you did here, that information will go up on the website in the next 24 hours.
Thank
Yep.
you.
Yep.
There will be multiple opportunities for the community to be involved, won't there?
Yes.
From the focus group, the interview groups, and
The focus groups and the interview groups, the ultimate interview is you, the board. You make the decision. So the rest is just input.
Thank you.
You bet. Any else?
Mr. Foster?
You bet.
Wongman, budget goals?
As a part of our board budgetary process every year, we always want to start out with having the board have a discussion of what they'd like in their budgetary goals. So we pre-drafted some goals for you to look at, and I'll go through those and just talk a bit about a few of them, so I'll make sure that we're all communicating on the same page. The first one is to convert school carryover funds into our school-based budgeting process. And what that would mean to continue to, if you will, automate the budgetary process for our schools in their site-based budgeting. In this, we would allow the schools to use any unused funds in their school-based processes moving forward. So let's just say that at the end of the year, Lewis Palmer High School has a $20,000 positive variance where they haven't spent all the funds allocated for that school based on that process. They would automatically be able to carry those funds over into the next year. The logic behind that is if the principal has the control of his or her budget, then by having use of those funds for the next year, they could better plan for long-term projects and better plan for the future of their building budgets under the site-based budgeting model. The second one would be to ensure that any increased funding for our vocational categorical funding, which is funding from the state, as a return from the state for our vocationally approved programs by the Colorado Department of Education, would be to be put back into those programs to continue to grow those programs. The third bullet point down is to complete the modular program that we've already started on. That one seemed like an obvious. As you know, we're working on writing for 2 BEST grants this next school year, one for the Prairie Winds roof and one for the Kilmer boiler. There's a 55% match, so the goal would be to ensure in our capital reserve funds budget, we allocated funds towards that match. The next piece is around compensation, to make sure that we have that as an important point in our budget and make sure that any increases are commensurate with the state per pupil funding increase. And then the next piece down was something that Mr. Taylor mentioned at our last board meeting, which was to consider returning funds transferred between 2011, 2012 through 2014, 2015 from the building reserve fund to the capital reserve fund back to the building reserve fund. To give you all a bit of history, during that time, during the economic recession, a total of $1.25 million were transferred between $300,000 and $200,000 a year. They were used for capital projects. The rationale behind it by that board at that time was to deal with the large funding reduction cuts from the state, which were 16% at the time. So that gives you a bit of history. So that's what Karen and I worked up. It's your budget goals. So there's your lead in. I don't know if you all have any questions or anything else we need to add to this list.
Mr. Taylor, what are your thoughts regarding these goals?
I would like to have this on our work session meeting on February the 4th.
Okay.
What I would like to do is you know, last time I didn't vote for this year's budget, and the reason we didn't address any of our deferred maintenance issues.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'd like to do is I'll take the budget and I'll just prepare my view, my perspective, and I'll share it at the February 4th meeting, which I think is consistent with your timeline that I see later. So if that's okay.
Mr. Miguel, can we put that on the agenda? Yeah, perfect.
I did want to, this is only a messaging clarification. The capital reserve funds that were transferred out, essentially the source of those funds were cash in lieu of, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so just so that we're all clear, the monies that we're moving back into that fund are monies that were contributed to the school district in lieu of land, which is for expansion. And that's the reason I wanted to point this out and to move it back to where it came from now that we're in a little better situation than during the recession.
Ms. Phillips, Ms. Upchurch, any questions?
So should I reserve ideas and thoughts for the February work session instead?
Probably.
Okay.
Unless you would like to address them here. It's
Well,
your
this
call.
is about goals. If you have any specific goals.
Yeah, well, my question is, when I'm looking at, just on a personal, as one board member, when we're ensuring compensation increases, is that across the board from our building and grounds to our bus barn to our support staff, office staff at the building level? Teachers?
That was the intent, yes.
Okay. And when we're doing that, are we ensuring that we're remaining as competitive as we can, that we are putting that as a priority to ensure that with our overcrowded schools that our staff and feel that they're valued? Does that make sense?
It certainly does make sense, and as I know you know, it will come down to juggling many priorities to determine exactly where everything is going to land. But if the board wanted to do something different around compensation, we would want to know that earlier rather than later so we can make sure we fit that into our budgetary planning.
Can I address that as well? Because I think the point is that we're at near capacity, right? We're growing, we're adding students, we'll add more students next year. I don't know what the number will be, but as we get closer and closer to capacity, the actual operating budget is healthier, right? Because we don't have a school half full that we're having to spend operating funds for, et cetera. So I would have us as a board consider perhaps one time rather than build it into an ongoing, because there will be a school open sometime, and we need to make sure that our operating costs are sufficient to cover the opening of a new school also. But right now, I would say just based on capacity, I don't know what the percent capacity is, let's just say it's 95% versus 80%. Well, that's good for the bottom line. So for the reasons I heard you state, I would only have us consider, think about having a one-time allowance of some sort for comp rather than build it in to the base.
Such as like a bonus?
So it could be a one-time stipend, although I think people are appreciative of that, and obviously they prefer to have the ongoing added. What we'll do is we'll bring you a proposal of what we think we can afford, factoring in the money that we have, knowing that if we give to one group, we need to address all groups. And so we will bring that forward, and then you can make a decision on whether, to what level you want to support, much like we did last year. Same kind of idea. And yeah, so we'll just have to balance that out. And also, Chris makes a valid point about the capacity, and keeping in mind, though, there will be obviously some staffing additions when we get to certain levels at certain schools, because we'll have to add more support.
And my only other one, because you know it's coming, is can we have a good, genuine discussion about how we're going to address Grace Best? We hear it as us as a board. We hear it as a common denominator across all spectrums in our community. On the west old side of the building, I have no idea how much it would realistically cost. And I know that there's only so much to go around, but as a goal, or whether it's a long-term goal, whether it's this year or next year, but something I'm still passionate about addressing.
So we did get an estimate.
Yes, we have gotten it. If you're talking about estimates to demolish the older part, we do have those estimates, and so we could put something together for you if that would be acceptable.
Yes, please.
Okay.
So is that the will of everyone on the board, and how do you want that in a work session, in a board meeting?
To be respectful of everyone's time, I think it'd be helpful to have it in the work session meeting. It's looking like February is going to be a busy work session meeting. I don't mind staying late that night, or we could look at putting it on the agenda, the work session agenda for March.
I don't think we've made a final decision on the bond, right? I mean, we have leanings, but we're still getting feedback from the schools, and so I was under the impression that we were going to address that in February.
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
And I think Grace Best needs to be dealt with as a part of that decision process. That's my input to that.
All right, we'll put it on the February work session agenda. Okay. And then Cheryl, part of our packets, will you make sure that we have all the estimates for demolishing it?
Absolutely, and we'll work to make sure that we get those out in plenty of time so you can study it before you come to the meeting.
Perfect.
It's going to be very good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl.
Okay, next agenda item, Mr. Foster, consider approve the 2019, 20, and 2021 district calendars.
Yes, sir. You have before you the 1920 calendar. There was a discussion inside of.
Mr. Foster, can you blow that up so the audience could see that?
Hot off the press, right?
Hot off the press. Okay. So this was reviewed by the District Accountability just about an hour or so ago. I had suggested in that meeting that we move the 8th and the 27th dates in April and May up, but I was informed when I sat down that I would then move from messing up AP testing, which the 8th of May falls in AP testing realms, that then moving that day off up the week would then make it fall in the CMAS testing realm. So I can't move them. So sorry to District Accountability, I apologize. It was a great idea for about 5 minutes. And then I thought I had it all solved, and then I would like to say Dr. Benton ruined my world. She does that from time to time. But so this would be as proposed with these dates. It fulfills all the requirements. It has the least amount of impact on all of the testing that is done without something really funky going on. But this also moves up. You'll notice the Monday start, which is a little unusual. I've heard a little bit about the Monday start, but you will also notice the 21st of October doesn't have a circle on it. I call that the nice to have off day, which will lengthen that middle of October for families. Many families will have the 18th, 19th, 20th, and 21st off. So plan your ski trips, plan your fun that weekend. It's a long weekend for families and teachers as well. Any other questions on that?
Ms. Upchurch, I believe you were with DAC before this meeting. Is this, other than the changes that Mr. Foster alluded to, is this consistent with?
I wasn't there. I rushed off to here.
Okay, I stand corrected.
DAC and people from DAC are here, but yeah. Other than that change, they voted on this. There's not a whole lot of other changes, though, we can make within that and not have, it's a snowball of repercussions whenever you start moving days inside this calendar.
I'm fine with, I mean, I trust you guys with the calendar. I just have a question from a parental perspective. With
Sure.
a Monday start date, our orientations.
The Friday before.
Friday.
Okay, and would that, I'm assuming that would be well publicized
Yeah.
because I, as a parent, once missed an orientation day, so.
I think the elementary principals have left, but they were already talking to me about it. That was
Yeah.
actually their decision. That came out of the principal ranks, that they wanted to move that October day, and moving that October day slid everything back.
And doesn't that apply to the high school as well? Isn't there, for the freshmen?
There will
they go a
always,
day
yes,
ahead?
their orientations in that are in the 2 weeks prior to that. So their
Okay.
orientations are always within those 2 weeks prior, whether it be a Monday, a Tuesday, or Wednesday. It's at some point in there, they'll schedule around that.
So did I understand you correctly? The high school orientations would be the first full week of August?
No, I would anticipate high school orientations without having one of the high school principals here to fall on the 13th or 14th.
Okay.
Right in that
Could
Tuesday,
they add that
Wednesday.
in this calendar?
This calendar has a limited amount of information. It's added to each individual level, then takes off and builds off of this. What you're looking at is the 182 teacher master calendar, which is the teacher contract day. There are approximately 20 other calendars that fill in the gaps for every working employee group in the district. So this is not an inclusive calendar. It is the general parameters, and then I think you may have gotten the 100, you only got the 182. I have 169, 167, and 163 for the 3 grade levels. And then I have a separate calendar. Lori's laughing, isn't she?
We had no idea there were this many calendars.
I'm
merely
a myriad
asking.
of calendars for every event.
I'm merely asking for
Yeah.
people who Google ahead, who are planning
They
summer
will-
vacation, will they get to,
Right.
yes,
the high
on the
school,
13th, my child has.
After this is approved, that's when the schools start adding their days into it. And then that's published on the websites.
Thank you.
Until you approve this, though, they can't go ahead. It's about a month behind where I would have liked to really have been. But I had different calendars for November. Oh, well.
Did I hear you say that this is there's a lot of testing that has to come into effect to make sure that this all works out?
Yes, the testing windows all fall with, and Dr. Benton can chime in if she wants to instead of laughing at me. But the testing windows for CMAS will fall in the last 3 weeks of April. AP falls in the first, I think it's the full week of May. And then, so all of those testing windows will fall in that last part of there. And then, of course, graduation falls at the end of May. And then trying to balance out second semester and first semester is always the challenge, because we want first semester. Nobody likes it when first semester goes over into January. I was here the last time we did that. Nobody liked that. So we're not doing that again. So
I came from a school district that did that. I appreciate that we don't. I don't
Yep.
think we understand the
high
blessing we have
high school
there.
kids hate that.
Yeah.
The only other question I think that comes to mind is, is the May calendar deconflicted with AP exams in terms of graduation?
So we don't have the AP testing dates. We don't
Oh,
have the
right.
student testing dates. What we have is we try to mirror what that might look like. So again, we're doing the best we can to predict. But we can't, right now, graduation is not set in stone either. So again, this is the first step in the process, and then we move forward.
We have to have a schedule approved, and then we go from there trying to, and it is a matter of deconfliction of all of the dates. Dak asked about CHASA because for some strange reason, I'm not knocking CHASA, but for some strange reason, track finals always fall on like our graduation day. And baseball is always played well into the month of, last year I think it went into June. So depending on where your school is and when it's dismissed, it's going to conflict with it. They also moved the start date for football back into August. And I'm sure if Mr. Pulford were here, Coach would tell you that that's really enjoyable when August football now starts August 1st. They moved it back 3 weeks. So all of the seasons moved around. I wish there were a pretty answer that would make it all work, but it's a matter of trying to make it work the best.
How does the basketball season fit into?
I don't know basketball season. I would defer to my counterpart over there who knows basketball season.
So potentially the football season will overlap?
No, the football season was moved back 3 weeks, but still ends right around the same time. They shifted it a little bit.
Okay, so kind of, okay.
Yeah, it's. They all do to a degree. Practices overlap with finals of the last season coming up, so they always have overlap. I don't know. I never heard the logic of why they moved the fall sports like football back.
Okay.
It was to please somebody. It pleased no one.
Yeah, with this type of calendar, there's always going to be someone that's unhappy with the change.
I'm used to it. Yeah. Yeah.
All right,
And
any other?
I was going to say, I'm sorry, I had put 2 years forth because one of the things that I heard a lot of in the last month was, where's the calendar, where's the calendar? So I want to have one. We can always change next year's.
Sure.
But if we don't have one sitting out there, I get a lot of questions about where spring break is going to fall.
And if we change the calendar, we will not be changing spring break.
We never change spring break. I hope not. I have airplane tickets.
So Karen, I have a quick question, and that is there any significant difference in this process than the last 2 or 3 years? Is there any significant changes?
No, it involves a group of people. We send it out to get comments, and it usually is a long, enduring, or should I say, not enduring, arduous process, because everyone has sort of an opinion of what they would like to have happen, and there's, as Bob said, there's kind of a domino effect when you start moving one day here and one day there. It's hard to get to. So by the time it gets to you, it's been through a lot of work.
It and I have been beat up pretty well.
And in essence, we're not really approving a calendar, we're approving a process.
Yes, exactly. And I would say it's fairly consistent as to what we've done for a while and consistent with what happens often in districts. We actually have a pretty comprehensive process that includes DAC, and not all districts do include their DAC in that process. So.
Matt, would it be okay if we make the motion to approve the process for establishing these district calendars? Because they're going to change. I can guarantee you they'll change. So it seems odd that we would approve the calendar to me.
We've done that before, and then we come back with a revision and you approve that, and it supersedes. So.
Yeah, but if we just approve the process, then we let the people deal with it.
We actually have to, by state law, approve the calendar itself.
Can we get it in the consent agenda then? I'm half serious here because it's like, do we really want to consider this?
You don't need to. I mean, you can actually move it to the consent if you want to. It's just, it has to be approved tonight to meet the deadlines for the state.
So if I'm understanding, you don't object to the proposed motion, it's just, okay. The only problem is we already.
I'm okay. I was actually just asking for consideration to change it so we're approving the process the district uses.
Okay.
The outcome is flexible.
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
So in the future, we can put it in our notes that it will be in the consent agenda if that's what you're asking for.
Well, I would like that, but.
Okay, but to be clear, in the future, but not tonight, because
Agreed. Yes. And we can bring that up as a separate, whatever, however we have to accomplish that.
Because we'll probably bring it out of the consent agenda and talk about it anyway.
I won't, but
So one quick question. April 10th, is that,
Good Friday.
yes, is that, it says K through 6 and 7, 8. Does that mean high school? Oh, no, I did see where it says, no. Does that mean the high school students will
school's
have
in.
school?
High school's in because they don't have the day off. They don't have enough time.
They don't have any flexible time?
Right. They have more days. They have 169 days. Contact.
Or an excused absence?
I got as close to Good Friday and Mr. Poff isn't here.
Chris, I understand your point about just streamlining the process in general. So that it's, yeah, I'd be fine with it being in the consent agenda myself.
All right, I'd like to make a motion to approve the 2019, 2020, and 2021 school district calendars as presented.
I'll second the motion.
Questions, comments, concerns? Hearing none, Ms. Namika?
Mr. Clausen.
Aye.
Ms. Phillips.
Aye.
Mr. Taylor.
Aye.
Ms. Upchurch.
Aye. Sorry, I'm still looking at that 10th.
Okay. All right, next agenda item, enrollment dashboard.
I thought there's no update, sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, there's nothing there. There is nothing attached. Are we supposed to have something?
Well, it is on the agenda, so I want to put it before the board if
sorry.
there's any questions for Ms. Wangaman.
For what?
No data.
There's no updates.
Okay. Yeah, there it goes. No updates.
Okay, so basically there was no change from last month.
Okay. All right, moving on to the financial dashboard.
You have the financial dashboard in front of you. As I mentioned in the financial summary, we are continuing to monitor the specific ownership tax variance versus budget. We are down approximately $90,000 versus last year. It may be just a timing variance, but I want to continue to keep an eye on that to see what the cause is and if that's something we need to concern ourselves with as we move forward. Other than that, we're satisfied with revenues and expenses moving along as projected or as noted in the previous budget adjustment.
Any questions, comments, concerns on the financial dashboard before we move on?
It's for December. We don't know why we're down? Or we do?
It could just be timing. It could be that new vehicle sales are down, but I'm going to give it just about a couple more weeks, and then we're going to call the county and make sure that see what we have going on there and see if we need to think about making an adjustment. It is an indicator, typically, of the economy generally, and we've had a robust economy the last few years. When we created this year's budget, we had no expectation that we would see anything but at least steady, which is where we budgeted it, or perhaps an increase. So it may be an indicator of a slowing economy.
Okay, moving on to the next agenda item, the budget calendar.
So each year we create a budget calendar, which basically keeps us on track so that we can have the budget ready to go by May. What we attempt to do is break up the budgeting process so we tackle just a few funds each month. So you're not just absolutely inundated by numbers in May and June. So I put together a draft for this year for you all to take a look at. And I always include the goals, so I included the draft goals that we just talked about. So I'm going to skip slide 2, try to say that 3 times fast. And then go on into January. And just to note, we've had some discussion of state funding assumptions. I've sent some information out to you all in the last month. You all have also studied Metro Studies growth projections at this point. So, and we've reviewed tonight, and you'll talk in your work session about your budgetary goals.
Excuse me, so you are using that December Metro Study demographic to budget?
We are using that December demographic study as our starting point. We will then confer with the principals and look at growth from since October 1 to when we actually budget to determine exactly where we want to go with enrollment. We've done quite a bit of analysis over the years to see how to best pinpoint what our enrollment will be. And we've found if we wait into April to make that final determination, our accuracy of being able to predict enrollment greatly increases. So we do like to stretch that out, and we also like to have a lot of input from our principals. So we would suggest that we don't use their exact numbers, that we go ahead and let our typical process go forward. We certainly wouldn't want to overestimate enrollment. We'd rather be a bit on the conservative side.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. So going on in February, we usually have an initial discussion of our large expenditures. In the past, we've called that our cap reserve expenditures, but now we have large expenditures in many, many different points in the budget. So we talk about what we project for capital reserve or capital maintenance type items, also what we're looking at in terms of technology spending, curriculum spending, and then our STEAM initiatives, which continue to get larger. We've already had initial discussions. Karen and I have already been back and forth with how we think the big picture is looking, but in February, we'll give you our first look at what we're seeing about that. And that's really important because often we will request approval of specific projects prior to the rest of the budget being approved in June. And we do that so we can get a head start, because a lot of times we have to have contracts going so the minute school gets out, we can go ahead and hit the ground running and make sure we get the projects done while the kiddos are out of the building. So you'll see that. Hopefully y'all will finalize your budgetary goals, and we'll begin to discuss compensation so we can make sure that we have that into the budget as well. Insurance coverages you normally come in February and March in terms of health insurance, so Bob will be giving you all an update on those. Then on in March, we usually finalize the compensation package. We discuss student fees, although I think Bob's got some pre-work done on that tonight. We do discuss the budget with DAC, and that is a change. We used to discuss the budget with DAC in April, but we're moving it up a month because one of the inputs that they gave us last year, and Tiffany may want to speak to this, is that they wanted to be involved earlier in the process.
Correct. Thank you.
Yeah. So we made that adjustment. And of course, we may begin to ask you all for approval of specific capital projects that I've discussed before. And then we like to start actually going through the funds, talking about the insurance reserve, also known as the risk management fund. That's our liability property boiler insurance fund. Discuss the bond redemption. That one is a fairly easy, quick discussion because it's set. We know what our debt payments will be. And then also discuss our nutritional services or our food service fund. Get that first grouping, if you will, out of the way. April, as we discussed earlier, finalize those enrollment projections. Give you all any updates that we have, and Tiffany, I know we'll be bringing these updates to you as well in terms of what we see the state doing with our per pupil funding. Mm-hmm. And the hard part of creating a budget is often we don't know what the per pupil funding will be until May or June, but we have to budget and get going on it. Tiffany will provide feedback from DAC to the board, and you see the listings of funds that we would discuss in the month of April. Going on to May, now basically we're done with the cycle. We would have the budget hearing, the public hearing in either May or June. We would present you all in May with a proposed budget, get that up on the website so folks can make comment. And in June, adopt the budget and get it up on the website and take the process of putting the budget into all of our systems. So that gives you an overview of what we have planned. We'd be happy to make any adjustments, but that's the way it looks to us right now.
I appreciate the opportunity for DAC to get more involved in it in March and have a good round discussion that involves stakeholders and the district jointly. So I do appreciate that. I think it's a good idea, personally.
Okay, next agenda item, board calendar.
It looks good to me. Are we gonna publish that? Or is it already published? I don't know.
Yes, we will make sure it's published on the website. You don't actually have to approve it, though. It's just an announcement. So.
The one thing I would ask of my fellow board members is once you get your school schedules for kids' activities, concerts, and so forth, I know at times it could be hard to schedule meetings, but if at all possible, I sure would like to do our best to accommodate your schedules so you're not missing your kids' activities to be here.
So are we moving we're moving our board meetings next year to Wednesday?
Some of them.
Okay. So August and September is a Wednesday. October is. Am I looking at
I
the
don't
right
think we have any Wednesdays. I think we moved some till Tuesday.
Yeah, I'm looking at the
You're in
wrong year. I'm in
2020.
2020.
Yeah.
My apologies. I just saw that.
Well, let me just say that, you know, in some respects, I feel like I should apologize when I'm not here, because on the phone, it's difficult for you all and me, or any of us, when we're not here. But I think when we are here, we really owe it to the people who present to give them their time and fair opportunity to share what they presented, because I think they put a lot of effort into this.
Absolutely.
And I appreciate that effort, and I appreciate what I learned through that process. So I would just ask us to show the respect to allow them to do their presentations fully.
Okay. Good comment, Mr. Taylor. Thank you. All right, any other questions before we move on? So before we take a motion on the consent agendas or anything that any of the board members would like to discuss? Mr. Taylor, you've had a chance to have your questions answered regarding the contracts?
I have, thank you.
All right,
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Just for learning purposes, how are the student fees determined for like athletics and such?
For athletic fees, what we look at is how the athletic directors and I sit down and evaluate how their budgets are versus actual, where their costs are increasing the most. You'll notice there's an increase in cost for middle school payments. That has to do with legal precedents coming out on concussions. And middle school had to move to a higher class of helmet. So for example, we had to increase the cost of that to try to cover the increased cost of retrofitting and checking out and replacing middle school helmets. For swimming, for hockey, a couple years ago, we realized that went up considerably. A couple years ago, that had to do with rental and ice time. And it was actually the hockey parents who said they'd rather spend more upfront for the fee than do as much fundraising for ice time. The same with swimming. Swimming went up, I think, a smidge this year or the last year, and that had to do with rental and pool rental. So a lot of that is how those fees are derived, is we're looking at the typical, what's not so typical inflationary spirals. Sometimes those jump up a bit because we've been behind for a bit. And it's usually facilities and equipment that are driving it. The big driver for the middle school football is helmets. The big driver for the high schools is the rental of the fields and ice time and pool time.
Okay.
Cheryl can correct me, I think pool time was 18 this year.
I believe it did, and I believe that was last year, though, that we actually had the swimming increase. We also look at what other schools around us are charging.
We try to stay within the realm of what everybody else is charging, but some of those fees, we have to pay a pool fee. Liberty and District 20 don't pay pool fees because they have their own pools inside. Conversely, though, those pools cost an arm and a leg to maintain. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I just had no idea. I was curious.
We ready to take a motion? Okay, I'd like to make a motion to adopt the consent agenda as presented. Let me retract that. I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Questions, comments, concerns? Hearing none. Ms. Namika?
Mr. Clausen?
Aye.
Ms. Phillips?
Aye.
Mr. Taylor?
Aye.
Ms. Upchurch?
Aye.
All right, is there any other business that needs to be conducted before I make a motion to adjourn? Okay, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, Ms. Namika?
Mr. Clausen?
Aye.
Ms. Phillips?
Aye.
Mr. Taylor?
Aye, aye.
Ms. Upchurch?
Aye.
We stand adjourned.